Okay. I don't mind.
Oh, let me confirm. Come to submit your
I think having an open at erratic times. The key shop, yeah.
It's
Terrible.
Are apples able
I
to
mean,
share?
I can see that in the left starting to get it.
Apples, like we're just like
Yeah, you're all part of the same pie.
we're doing away with words.
Yeah. Because of the goal. No.
So like, yep, like it doesn't keep working.
Yeah, I'm surprised you weren't. Oh, he like a day before he said this shit.
I've been thinking of this for a
Yeah.
Nice song.
Hey, guys.
Set, go. I call the Senate to order at 6:06 p.m. on March 17, 2015. Next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please lead us off. Mr. Joshua Smith.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Next thing on our agenda is first roll call. Does everyone have their clicker? Please get your clickers. Alright, got it? Video time.
Wow, look at that.
Alright, so click 1 for president, and click 1 for president. Melissa? Click 1.
Sure.
Make sure you click in.
I did.
What you also notice what it uses new initiatives is to make things prettier.
Okay, is everyone clicked in? Okay, we have a quorum count of 23 people today. Alright, next item on the agenda is additions or deletions or clarifications to the orders of the day. Our guest speaker has rescheduled to March 31st. So, any questions? Liz?
I moved to check if
Are there any objections to striking the presentation? Seeing none, it's removed. Does anyone have any motions to the agenda? Liz?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Are there any objections to approving the agenda? Seeing no objections, the agenda is approved. Next is approval of the additions, deletions, and or changes to minutes. I sent out the minutes for January 13th. Has anyone read it? Brandon? Okay. Are there any objections to approving the minutes for January 13th, 2015? Okay. Seeing none, those minutes are approved. Next, we have the legislative branch report. We will start with Chairman Brandon Hartman.
Excellent. All right. Good evening, everybody. So UCGA will be having their 10th day tomorrow. Senators Santos and Banning will be leading it. It's going to be by USFA at the Capitol. Because the legislative session has been changed to earlier next year, we're going to do USFA at the Capitol in the fall of 2015 so that we can basically lobby for our issues before the session starts and get funding. The complication is because it's an election year next year, so that's why they moved the full schedule and it won't be in the spring but in the fall. So the point of tomorrow's 10th day is to figure out what issues the students have that they want us to lobby on behalf for them at the Capitol. So I'm going to pass out some sign-up sheets if you are available between 9:30 and 1:30. Please sign up and you get pizza and positive points. And for my committee, it is mandatory unless you have an excuse. Okay. So please pass those out. Good job. You did that direction. Thank you. And my committee will also be meeting next week at 10 a.m. and we'll be wrapping up some of the resolutions that we're looking at. Any questions?
Any questions for Chairman Hartman? Seeing none. Moving down to special funding, Chairman Corey Long.
My committee had a nice vacation this week, and we did not meet, but we will be meeting on Monday and going through some changes that were suggested to our applications so that we can have those ready for next month.
Thank you very much, Corey. Next, we have Judiciary and Ethics, newly elected Chairman Elijah Deborah.
Hello, everyone. This week, our committee went over minutes and we had an icebreaker. We didn't go over too much business. I gave a presentation on legislative reviews, which is something that we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. Our first one is going to be next week. And also, I have accepted a grievance that we will go into next week.
Wait, and you accepted a grievance to
Someone asked me if I wanted to accept it.
Who's the ISN?
Wait.
He is investigating an organization for a grievance. There's nothing that is done. He's investigating.
Who's the investigation?
It's an investigation, not a grievance. Doing an
Not formal.
investigation for
Not formal.
well, talk us afterwards. There's certain procedures and something to follow. Any more questions for JC Hiba? Alright, seeing none, we have newly elected Appropriations Chair, Mr. Josh Rudd.
Alright, so last week was my first time chairing. We had a lot of business. We passed 4 budgets, and the 4th one still hasn't had their constitution approved, so we're waiting on them. Also, next week's going to be very busy, so I recommend you come out and see the fun. We're going to have 1 budget request for transfer, and they're going to present to us. We have 3 off-campus requests, up to 3 student organizations asking for interim funding, and that's what we have.
Okay, any questions for Chairman Gluck? Alright, seeing none, there is no chair or vice chair for Rules Committee, but the Rules Committee does have few bills that are backlogged that they will have to bring to committee. I would say at least 4 or 5, mostly from Corey, some from the business office, and we'll have to get back on track this Thursday, so you guys should expect to have a meeting regardless if the chair is chairing it or not, because the meeting still needs to happen. Okay? And next up, we have Pro Tem Board Kristen Trong with the report.
Hey guys, so I've been doing pro tem work, keeping up with attendance closely. That's about it. I'm not really sure. The majority of my time I'd say is dedicated to ASARs because major student organizations are getting met with. So I'd say about 90% of my time is in doing ASAR stuff. So, any questions? Oh yeah. Well, that's like vice chair ASAR stuff. Yeah. Also, if you guys email me, make sure you email to my address.edu. Please. And my last name is Truong. Just so to, or else I won't get it.
Okay, thank you very much, Pro Tem Board Trong. And for my report, I'll start off with the ASARC report. ASARC has had a special session on Monday. We'll have another one on Thursday, and a regular session on Friday. So the special sessions have mainly been to complete the two organizations. We have 27 left, and so it's near completion. We're saving the most complicated to the end, and we should be done by Friday for student organizations, and then we will move on to the new initiatives for the departments. Each student affairs department is requesting something new. We'll after we finish the student orgs, we'll know exactly how much we've allocated, how much money is left to allocate. Right now, based on Monday's meeting, we have approximately 120,000 in terms of allocation, but that's on the low end. So as we get closer, we'll get a better number, better projection. So stay tuned for that. You will receive the bill, the final bill, the first Tuesday in April is when the first time we will be reading the bill. And we have till the last meeting to pass the bill. So my goal is that we finish it at least with good enough time to send out to the Senate, so you have time to review it. Because once the first 3 meetings in April, a large portion of the meeting will be dedicated just to reading and explaining the bill. In terms of every single section, why, how, all of that. So everyone knows that the rationale and what was funded. Because at the end, you guys have to vote on it, and then move on to Dr. Gaines have to sign. So that's sort of game time for ASAR. For the rest, and in terms of presidential report, we have a bunch of speakers that are being spread out throughout the semester, from the Dean for College of Arts and Science and other. Next up is the Dean for College of Business. Having the larger deans, since we already have public health and engineering already in Senate, because everyone is in here, so meet the Senate. And today I was at the Information Technology Management Committee, which pretty much allocates the money for USF system-wide of student learning technologies, let's say like Canvas or something. Something that's like system-wide for all three campuses to use. So with that, it's pretty intense in terms of because the project has to be system-wide. Other than that, our last Senate meeting is projected to be April 21st, that third Tuesday. So, also, the student banquet, you guys should have also in your email about the banquet, the time of the day. So, the way the banquet works is there's several awards that you can nominate people for. And you guys know where Tammy's desk is? Middle of the office, where Evan sits. So you walk down the office in the middle area where the couches are, on the opposite end. There's the ballots, so you fill those out with your name, your section of student government, and hand those into the ballot people. And that way the people with the most votes win the awards. So, any questions for me? Alright. Moving on now, we have the executive branch report with Ms. Judah June.
first students can sample their free food so they know what they're getting discounts for. So that's our big event for this year. In the other departments right now, they're just working on transitioning and having their transition 5-year set for your administration, and that's really it for the executive branch this year. Hopefully you'll come out. It's on Thursday from 10 to 2 at Cooper Lawn. So please come and support, and thank you, and have a wonderful Sunday.
Are any questions for Joan? Or is it 10 to 2 or
11 to 2.
Any questions? Seeing no questions, we're moving down to the judicial branch report with Senior Justice Lindsay Vitros.
Okay, so tomorrow we have our tabling with Pat. So that's going to be from 12 to 1 down in the center of the Marshall Center. So if you or you know anyone who has questions about parking or wants to just start gaining a relationship with parking and transportation, then be sure to check that out. Again, it's going to be tomorrow from 12 to 1. Michaela and I are going to be on the Strategic Goals Ad Hoc Committee. We're meeting at 1 p.m. on Monday. We have parking appeals tomorrow at 7:30, and I'm also in the process of planning our summit, which is going to be our judicial summit, which is going to be next month. And the campus who's going to host it this time around is Sarasota. So I'll be working with the Sarasota Chief Justice to be planning that summit. So be on the lookout for that. If any of you guys want to come, they're always a lot of fun.
Any questions for Chief Justice Lindsay? Thank you very much. All right, to add on to what Lindsay was saying about the ad hoc on the website migration. So all 3 branches have made a joint ad hoc to move the website to the university's frame website. So it'll be more not user friendly, but easier to upload and put documents. So it's not, you don't need the technical knowledge of Dreamweaver or some sort of programming knowledge to put things on the website. So that's the task that the Dreamweaver people that put things on the website, formerly me, not just in the Mikhail through the court, and Greg does it now through the executive branch. So hopefully we'll get that done within the 2 weeks we have left. So next up we have open forum. Michael?
Good evening, Senate. Andy and I wanted to give you a little bit of a transition report, give you an idea of some of the things we're working on. First of all, we're working on hiring our chief of staff. We're going to be taking that off the website at the end of business on Wednesday, which will be the 5-day requirement. We're looking forward to seeing the applicants for that. The branch structure will be going to rules to be approved, hopefully, and then coming to the Senate floor so you guys can take a look at how we intend to run the branch next year. We also have been taking a look at the safety and contract with UPD, which is set to expire this summer, so we're going to look to renegotiate that and see what can be added to or subtracted from that contract. We've met with orientation to discuss the contract with them, which is again also up for renewal this year. And which mentioned earlier, USFA Capital will be in November, so we're looking forward to working with Chairman Hartman's committee to find out what issues are important to students moving forward with that. We're working on it. You guys have any questions?
Question for the orientation. Is the org showcase on or off the table?
The org showcase is off the table, but we are looking at ways to replace it because orientation feels it's too hard for them to put it together, so we're going to try and find something to do with it.
Okay. Any other questions for Michael?
Thank you very much, sir.
Any other things for open forum? Emma? No, so remember I sent out a revised agenda that included this and the resolutions. This person canceled, so second. That's the motion. Glenn?
Can I add, this is after adding James and approve the agenda, but I'd like to get a 3/4 vote to add a green energy fund presentation to the agenda.
Is it proposal?
It's been sent to you earlier.
Well, I prefer to have it 24 hours in advance, so at least next week, or we'll talk about it because currently there is a proposal I'm working on to make the Green Energy Fund a functioning group, partisan government, which essentially is what the resolution is already trying to do. So that's what I told the
I like to object to that. I'm not trying to make it part of city government.
Mr. Fields, you haven't been called on, sorry. But I mean, the project is something that I'm working on. If you want to like work on with me, I can explain what we're doing. But essentially, puts the student back in the energy fund. Kristen,
I'm here to enter presentation though on the CSI agreements.
all right? Anything else for any objections to that? Chris,
Objects. I think he should speak.
I
Kristen,
rescind.
do you rescind?
I'm sorry, you're asking if I rescind?
Yeah, do you rescind your objections?
Do you object to me having him speak?
No.
I'm confused.
You
You're saying you're
I
not
don't
rescind.
rescind. I don't understand if something's not sent in ahead of time. I have to send things in ahead of time.
Yeah, so all the documents are sent out to you 24 hours in advance.
It's not for the presentation of the resolution, it's for him speaking as to what the resolution is.
I mean, open forum is, you need a motion for that. Motion to add something to the agenda. You didn't say open forum. Kristen motion to move to new business. So Chris, do you rescind your objection?
Chris,
No, I don't rescind my objection.
Kristen, do you? Alright, we're gonna vote on whether you want to do business.
are you serious?
Yes.
Is this
Any
for?
further inquiry?
Yes, it's just a
Sure.
question. So, it's not presenting anything, we just want to go back to open forum to let someone speak, right?
Is that one?
That's not all.
Corey, you have more
More
information?
information. Right now, we're going to voting whether to move into, new business or stay where we were.
Yeah, so Aladdin, motion to add something to the agenda. Let me take it back. I know we're working on something like the same, similar thing. Then Kristen motioned to go to new business. Because we'll send out 24 hours in advance and all doing similar things. Then Chris objected. So Chris did new business. And Chris did not rescind. So now we're voting on whether to move into new business.
Point of inquiry, is this for someone to speak? I'm so confused.
Point of information, the reason I objected is because there's someone in the gallery for the first time in like 6 weeks
Yeah.
who wants to speak, and I'm gonna yield my time so we can talk for 30 seconds
So-
before we move on. That's why I
You wanna-
objected.
I'll rescind for him to speak, but I'm not rescinding for adding something to the agenda.
I completely agree with that.
Correct. If that's
So-
what that is, I'll rescind for someone to speak, but I'm not rescinding for someone to add.
You got it, Aladdin? That's what we're gonna do? Alright, so John? Sorry.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator
Johnson.
Johnson, thank you. I would like to say to everyone that what I'm asking, the resolution that I'm trying to present, is completely different from, it is in the same area of thought, but completely different from what was presented. I am not intending to create another control the Student Green Energy Fund or any managing body. I am trying to create a communicatory body between student government, an ad hoc body, if you will, between student government and the current management of the Student Green Energy Fund, which is now the Department of Student Affairs. I, on Friday, had a meeting with them as one of the people who are in an ongoing proposal, and I have testimonies from Dr. Sunol, I have testimonies from myself, and I have testimonies from Atik Patel, who are currently working on proposals. And we are earnestly asking, on the side of people who are proposing to this, that student government be involved in the process of keeping our management accountable to us, the students, who are paying them our money to manage it for us. So I would be very grateful if I can be able to present this resolution today so that we can have a potential ad hoc committee created so that we can have communication established between student governments and between the people managing our money. So I understand that Bloom wants to create something. However, I'm asking that during this integral time that we are living in now, that we act and we communicate between student government, the students, and the student management fund managers, the administration. Thank you.
Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, point for open forum. Question for the air. John, is there a reason, is this time sensitive?
Yes, sir, because currently the proposal period is on hold. No one can submit a proposal. And they're trying to solidify how they wish the student management fund to move forward. So whatever they decide on to do in modifying the charter, it will be decided on by the Student Management Fund Council, which to my knowledge, from what I've heard from the Dean of Student Affairs, is not ratified by student government. This is a body that is not touched by student government. It's run by student affairs. So unless we go forward with a referendum, I don't see that happening.
So to add to that, so what you're saying is that the Student Management Fund used to be managed under the Office of Sustainability. Now it's going to be managed under Student Affairs. And Dr. Mill is overseeing that, and he had heart surgery, so he's out for a couple months. So they're transitioning. They don't have like finally what they want to do with it and how to manage it. All that I know last from talking to Dr. Miller is that they want to hire an administrator to administer the funds, and they want to reform. Talking to some of the members of the council to reform the council's charter, and it's all still pending. Nothing's final. Chris?
So if we, I guess the limit by time sensitive is this so urgent that necessitates breaking like the most important rule that we have for Senate, or can it wait till next Tuesday when it goes to the proper sending out process?
I believe we can wait until next Tuesday. However, I'm hopeful that, I don't know what the time frame is for Senate in regards to when we can act, because this is something that requires what I believe to be a constant communication with the individuals involved in creating the new modifications, if you will, for the Student Management Fund. This charter will be ultimately decided on by the council. However, they don't know so much, right? They're asking people proposals.
Alex clarifies that whatever changes they want to make has to come through the current student government administration and Andy and Mike in the transition. So whatever changes proposals they want have to get the student government buy-in for it.
So we don't. It's not like it needs to be decided now, but it needs to
No,
be decided relatively
nothing
near.
is final until we have a meeting between Andy, Mike, and Coco and myself to figure out what is like the path forward, since it is a student green energy fund for all students. That makes sense to you guys. Corey?
So seeing as this isn't time sensitive, I urge Lisa and Mr. John
Yes.
to work with Brooklyn 4 for that data on the resolution, if that's what you would like, on the agenda for the next meeting, so that we have time to look at the resolution beforehand and then go and address it in more detail next week. And
Corey?
I move to go into general business.
Are there any objections moving on to general business? First item on the agenda is presentation and vote on CSI grievances. So I'll show you what JC voted on and what Corey is suggesting as amendments. Alright, so we'll have Mr. Hilo read it. It was read in Senate, but there was no action taken. And per the way that JC functions, it requires the Senate to take action for executive action. Okay.
So, before we review this decision, the grievance findings, this is for CSI, and we decided in JAC that we will have them forward their materials for approval, just to make sure they all have the logo on them, since that was the issue. And part of the recommendation by JAC was include an action that JAC does not have the authority to enforce on CSI. This action will enforce by the Senate, so we'll bring you back to the Senate so that's no longer. And action that we recommended to JAC was for them to send their materials to the SG marketing department to make sure that they have the SG logo on them. And we need the Senate to approve that before we can enforce it. Right now, they're already following it. They're already sending their materials to SG marketing, but still need to vote. And then $40 amendment was to have them, to require them to submit their materials to Esgato, and Esgato has already been in contact with us, and they've agreed to take on the additional responsibility.
Okay, does anyone have a motion to enter a moderated caucus to discuss this? Corey?
I move to enter a 10-minute moderated caucus with 1 minute speaking time.
Okay, are there any objections to that? Alright, since you started off, Corey, you are first.
So the original recommendation from CSI, from JAC was to have CSI send it to the marketing department from the executive branch. So the change that I made was sending it to Esgato, and the reason for that is two things. By us mandating that another branch do something, it's kind of stepping out of our boundaries to say that we can force the exec branch to do something, even though we're not in control of them. So that was the first thing. The second thing is after talking to Greg Berkowitz, KB, who oversee the marketing department, we found that they have a lot on their plates already. So after talking, the recommendation was to change it to Esgato, and essentially all Esgato does is CSI sends them the graphics. They look at the SG logos, they say that's okay, and they move on with it. They've been doing this since the committee made a recommendation in the first place. They've already been sending it to Esgato. Gary said that they're okay with it, they have a process in place, and they're good to go. The only thing that we need to hear is say whether we're okay with this and whether you guys think this is an appropriate punishment to force it.
Who's next to speak? We have 9 minutes left. Okay. Alec?
If there are no more points of discussion, I move to adjourn the voting procedure.
Could you like hold like 1 second? Honestly. So what Corey's proposing is that we strike this and add this. Does anyone have a motion to amend it? Alec?
Move to accept Senator Yellow's amendment.
Alright, are there any objections to accepting Corey's amendment to say that Esgato will be the one reviewing the materials? Going once, twice? No objections. So now you can make that motion to vote. Alec?
I move to enter the voting procedure.
Alright, are there any objections to entering voting procedure? Seeing none. Clyde?
Right now, we're moving to voting procedures on whether or not we want to accept the amendment or whether or not we want to go through the course of action.
The course of action. Because they already accepted the amendment. No objections. So the vote will be yes to enforce the findings. No, not to accept the findings. And abstaining.
Sorry.
Understand, right? Okay. We have to. So. Does everyone have their clickers? Click 1 for here. Is everyone clicked in? Yep. That we have a quorum count of 24. We're moving back to the motion for the CSI grievance. So yes, is that you agree with the, agree and want to enforce the findings? No, you do not. And abstaining will be me. So we have three more people, three more that need to vote. Gustavo, one more. Well, our form had a 24, so without any good.
Yes.
Liz, have you voted? Okay, so we're good to go. With a vote of 22 to 1 to 1, the CSI grievance will take effect with the remedy provided from J&C. Okay. Next up, we have the fiscal legislation on first reading. Does anyone have a motion to enter reading for these bills? Okay. Does anyone have a motion? First reading, Brandon?
I move to enter first reading of SBA 55-066.
Are there any objections to entering first reading for this?
So the new account balance is 73,000. The next.
74.
I know, for this is. Alright, so first group is net. Pretty much in engineering, it was very confusing, so we had to use a lot of time and standards that we didn't have to think what we should do. So we came up to the conclusion that we would fund that amount. We wanted a robotic hand, so we funded portions, but we want multiple. Same thing with the bottom one. I want to build something else. As well as this one. Questions?
Right, any questions on the bill? Any questions, Corey?
For like the robotic hand and stuff, it says that the project's already started, and you guys funded half. How do you decide what items already had and they didn't?
How would we determine what they needed?
Yeah.
We looked at their list they provided for us for the most essential parts, and we pretty much funded it off of that.
Corey, does that answer your question? Does that answer your question? Are there any additional questions or motions? Mr. Hibble? Are there any objections to entering voting procedures for MET for $355.26? Seeing none. Everyone please grab your ticket. One for yes, two for no, and three for abstaining. Is everyone cooking? With a 23 to 0 to 1, that passes. Next on the agenda is youth empowerment skills motion to enter first reading on this bill? Alec?
Move to enter into first reading on SBA 55-06.
Any objections? Seeing none.
Basically, this organization is about how to relax, learning techniques on how to manage stress, and hang out with community or similar. His fund is $1,652, and he is white. Alright, so this is pretty much food, a lot of food that we gave. They asked for, they said a lot of people were attending, so following the standards.
Corey, the bill.
Alright, and then we also fund t-shirts and food for another event, for a meditation test.
Corey?
So, according, since there's no penalty, this looks like a new club with only 15 members. How do you guys look at this when you're considering that 400 people are going to attend an event or a completely new organization?
Great question. Well, when we were talking about it, we decided to, like, we haven't even seen this right now. And what we're going to do for next semester is if the organization is saying that they're going to have a lot of people attend, we're going to have it in the ROPs or SOPs, depending on where they go, that they should be audited as a recommendation because we're funding them based off of what we see, because we're trusting them, because that's what we've done for other organizations. So we didn't want to penalize them. So that's how we went about it.
Corey?
And I guess my question is more for the chair, not as you would know. Did you guys look at numbers, I guess, did you guys look at numbers last year, ASARC, because they're set this year based on last year? So did you look at numbers and set from there, or was it what you guys didn't look at numbers?
Corey, last year's ASAR, each member, they go off of the numbers that the member, only member, like the actual number. But this year's ASAR decided to go off of what they were requesting. So that's the decision that committee made. So we're not going off of the actual number that they told us. We go off the number that they requested in the budget.
So, but we made, you said last year they went on what actually happened? You said last year what they said?
Last year, we knew the organization asked, you say 1,000 people are coming, like how many actually people come? Some orgs would say, okay, 100 is the actual amount, or that's what the members had based their decision off last year. But Corey?
So we're supposed to fund this year based on last year's ASAR. When you met with them, did they say they would realistically have 400 people this
I did not meet with an organization.
But the appropriates committee this year hasn't been doing that. They've been going on that. Chris?
Sort of along this line. Is this a resubmission?
A recent vision?
Resubmission of the budget.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So this one went through originally when I was chairing. The decision was made by the Appropriations Committee based on a vote to accept the resubmission because we were told that the initial submission was not handled properly. If you looked at the budget, there were things that could have been funded that weren't. So the committee made a decision to accept a second submission of the budget. Believe it or not, actually doesn't say we can't do in statutes. It's just been common practice that we don't do it. As far as the estimated number, I did talk to them. They were very confident. I was one of them, by the way. Talking to them, they were very confident that there would be more than 400 people on the paper. They should believe it would be more than that. They thought that was a conservative estimate. I said, well, you're a new organization. You think it could be lower than that? They said, this event happens across the country, and they think it could be larger as a result of the fact that it's known. And to Zeus's point, the standard that we've been using, at least in the few months I chaired appropriations on this, was that we don't assume they're lying to us. They confirm with us the estimate they put on paper. We take it as it is because who are we to guess what their sense? That's what we did.
And then we also funded, like I said, t-shirts and another event. We also funded for the first event. For this event, we funded that made 80 tech teams.
Chris?
I understand that Mike was able to meet this organization again and talk about perceived mishandling of it originally. I'm just want the Senate to know that I voted no. I'm going to vote no on this because when I met with them, they basically flagrantly stated they don't have a plan for this event, for their events. They don't understand where they want to get their shirts. They don't understand why they would need T-shirts. They just knew they could ask for them. And I thought of all the organizations I had ever met with when I was the chair, This was the most perfect example of what happens if student organizations don't have a more transparent set of guidelines to ask for money from. So I don't trust what's on the budget.
I'm not going to call the question what you're saying, Chris, but I will say that your meeting with them took place months before mine did. The organization I met with, I can't speak to that. Same thing you said. They seemed well prepared. They had answers to all of my questions, and whether they were scripted or not, I couldn't tell you. But I can tell you that they had the answers. They were prepared for the meeting. And that's more than I can say for most of the organizations I met with.
Melissa, then Chris.
I just wanted to say I understand your concerns, Chris, but in ASARC as well, when we're funding organizations, we have to assume that they're telling us, giving us the right statistics and the info on like their attendance and stuff like that. And we've been treating all organizations the same way throughout this thing, and we, at the end of the day, we just have to kind of trust them as much as we can about this.
That's right. That's exactly correct. We have to treat every organization the exact same. The reason they had the answers to Mike's questions is because I asked them the same questions 5 months prior, and they were able to respond in a way that no other organization was able to, because no other organization had that much of a lapse between their submission and resubmission. Back when I was doing resubmissions in the first semester, they would turn it in like the next week. They'd get their crap together. They still might not know everything, but they would have it was because of a format issue. When I look at this, I look at they had time to actually replan and resubmit their budget, not reformat their budget so it was actually usable by the committee. And because of that, I'm still going to vote no because I think it's viewpoint neutral.
So I'm just going to throw out one fact really quick. Whatever happens, no offense, whatever happens to ASARC this year does not matter. And the reason why is our ASARC standards are based on statute that says whatever ASARC was decided last year is what follows into this year's interim funding. And I just want to point it out for the main reason that whenever ASARC does this, ASARC can fund every $1,000 and that's the rule. It means next year has to follow that. This year runs completely on last year's ASARC. Just that. So with that, I would ask Mr. Chair, last year in ASARC, were you looking at organizations' numbers and saying, this is unrealistic, we want to drop the number for their food, or did you guys just go with what they said?
You were 100% correct, Corey, in your statement that appropriations and audits this year should be functioning based off of last year's ASARC standards. However, if you look at appropriations and audit standards for this year, you're going to see there's a lot of amendments to them. And that's the fact that during the summer, Chris took the time with this committee to go ahead and change a lot of the standards based off what the committee wanted. They voted to change them, they made those changes, and if you would have said they could, there's no statute that says they can't change. The idea is you adopt them from the start, and throughout the year they are changed. One of the changes that may not be put on paper because ASARC didn't have it on paper was that we accept, because we don't have a formal way of checking their attendance, we accept their attendance as they give it to us, assuming it's within some type of reason. To Chris's point about it not being viewpoint neutral, I will say the reason I believe the committee voted to accept this budget a second time is because we looked at the submission. There were items that could have been funded and for other organizations were funded, and they were not funded because of some perceived. Honestly, in the notes, all I was able to gather was that because they had multi-day events, we didn't fund any of their events. That was what it said in the notes. Maybe you could shed more light on why they weren't funded first.
Are there any new points?
I can shed more light on the point that Mike would like me to shed light on. So that's worthy calling on the board. Okay. Yeah. So the original budget, if I remember correctly, didn't even ask for T-shirts. It asked for 5 different events over a week-long time. They asked for T-shirts too. Well, part of my issue was when we spoke for the first time, this organization didn't have an idea of how much money they wanted to spend on each day. So they weren't really asking for 5 separate events. They were asking for one big event that they tried to kind of scoop by with 5 separate events. So the fact that they said they didn't really know how they wanted to spend the money explicitly was a cause for me not to believe that was worth being funded. But also it was the same thing with the T-shirts, all right? Like, they put T-shirts in the budget because they saw they could ask for T-shirts. They didn't have it. They didn't know that they could even order T-shirts until they did a resubmission. Because I'm pretty sure the one that's even stated on the P drive right now is actually a resubmission that was readjusted for formatting. So I'm just, again, it's a I have to vote no.
The organization came in to inquire about the budget because they're not sure whether they are funded or not funded. So went to Gary to figure out what the steps were for that. And in that budget, there was an item that could have been funded for on Melon T-shirts. So going over with Gary, he suggested bring it to the committee, have the committee decide whether they want to or not to accept it. The committee voted to accept it, and that's the budget you guys have here. what we're talking
about whether the committee last year was lower amounts of food based on estimated on the organizations and members.
The committee was, the committee members had adjusted based on the conversations when we met with the people. So the people, I met with someone and they said 400 and I met with them, said 400. The committee was okay. But if some people had met and they said 400 people met and they said 75, the committee would have gone off to 75. But this year the appropriations didn't go off of that rationale. So this current year's ASARC also not going off of that rationale. They're going off of what they're requesting. Chris?
Josh, are there other things that this bill would fund other than T-shirts that were on the? Are there other things on the bill that would be funded other than T-shirts, like yoga remix mind or meditation sessions? So I guess my perceived issue is that if we wanted to make the argument that even though they might have, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if the argument is that we should have funded something that was on the original budget, that's why you voted it in, then why did you fund more than just what was on the original budget that you wanted to resubmit for that reason?
Michael?
I didn't have a vote, I wasn't allowed to discuss it, chair during this meeting, but I can tell you that my understanding was we chose to look at this as a fresh submission because we didn't feel that the first time it had been treated the way it should have been. We felt that for some reason they were not giving T-shirts, no other organization has been denied T-shirts to the ESPO. So we felt we would just look at it as a fresh request. Was the request different? Absolutely, but because like you said, the first one, even the one that saved on the P drive that you saved, was a resubmission, we just treated this as a whole new request, and that's why there were additional items funded. It's a fair rationale to say maybe just T-shirts.
Also, the audio files from one of the meetings wasn't recorded, so there was no audio. Double check. It's only the Senate audio, which had the same rationale as the multi-data. Corey?
So my question is, has this organization received an interim budget, whether it's zero or not? Have they received an interim allocation?
Any motions?
I just moved to vote.
Okay. Corey, I object to ask the question. And I need the answer.
Iverson.
Wait, okay. Your question is?
Has this organization received an interim budget before today, whether it's $0 or not?
They received a ceremonial $0. Valid? Yeah, that's $0.
So would that be an allocation of $0?
Yes, the Senate voted on that amount, but $0 is not any money allocated to them.
So, for 805.6, student organizations that receive an interim allocation through the interim funding procedures shall not be eligible to request or receive additional interim funds in the same fiscal year. Therefore, according to our statutes, we do not fund this organization.
Greater than zero?
It does not say greater than zero. It says it receives an interim allocation through interim funding procedures. It shall be uneligible to request or receive funds. Just saying the statutes that we cannot technically fund this according to statutes.
Michael?
Which is why, and back when I was the chair, we passed 7 or 8 bills with zero funding because we said that we recognize this issue, and I think this is actually something that Senex talked about, where if we just don't do any funding whatsoever, then there's nothing statutorily that prevents an organization from reapplying. But if we give them $0, we are giving them something. There's something on paper, technically. That's why it went through Senate the way it did. But I reinstate my motion. So.
Does anyone object to voting? Seeing no objections, we are entering voting for $1,653.60. Corey,
clarification. So if we say yes, we're voting to pass this bill. We're voting to pass this bill violating statutes. If we vote no, then we're voting to turn down the bill.
If you're voting no, you killed the bill.
Actually, okay, then can I rescind my motion?
Go ahead.
All right, can I reinstate a motion?
Go ahead.
Can I motion to table this bill for the purpose of amending it to only include T-shirts if was the committee's discretion, but to take off items that shouldn't have been brought back up because they wasn't a standard issue with them?
Corey, you have an objection?
My objection is that either way, no matter what is on this bill,
statutes.
It's statutes. So at the end of the day, we can pass the bill and decide that we don't care about statutes and we'll take the hit of violating statutes to pass the bill, or we can not pass the bill and just let it be zero funding. John, 5 minutes.
So they were already,
You rescind your motion from
Yes.
Josh.
so they were already funded $0 when we passed the bill in Senate. So I don't understand how they make it. Of course.
Alex?
Oh, I just had a question for, I guess, Melinda, Chris, or Josh. Is there anything in ROPs that give submissions or give resubmission permission to violate these statutes, or is it really just a thing saying, well, since it doesn't say we can't do resubmissions, then we're going to do it?
Corey? I'll answer that really quickly. It doesn't matter what ROPs say. ROPs cannot let you violate the statute.
Okay, Chris?
I moved to enter voting procedures then.
So yes to pass, zero to fail?
Yep.
Okay. Ryan? For rescind for
I would love to.
So I believe that we're going to run into legal issues if we do not fund them t-shirts because that's not people neutral. We have actually funded shirts for almost every other organization that's asked for it. And they specifically asked for it. And that's in board statutes that we need to treat them people neutrally. So we're going to run into legal issues otherwise.
Michael?
I think, is there a motion called for? Or?
Okay.
So when you initially gave this to me, Aziz, my thought was maybe we should just repeal the funding. Like, it's not something we do, but we do have the power to repeal acts, and that would have been my suggestion. If you really wanted to stick to statutes, I don't remember the exact rationale we used in committee. To be honest with you, it was a couple months ago. I've been a little busy since. But what I do know is that we found something in statutes. I think it was the one right after that. I can't. I'm trying to pull up my phone. It's a little bit harder. But it basically says that if they're not funded greater than $0 in the HSARC cycle, they can be. I don't have it in front of me. But my point is, I think you guys should table this at the very least. I wouldn't zero fund them again right now because I agree with Miller. The first time, I don't think they were treated to 20 years, so I think that they should have gotten t-shirts at least.
Also, tentative vote, if you agree with the $0 in the allocation, which can be arguable.
Then if everybody agrees with Corey, then my suggestion would be to draw up a bill repealing the first one, because I don't think we can really write the first one.
Al, Corey?
So, add to the table a bill, and that way we can get further information from our chair, Robert Johnson, to figure out what we can do to make sure that, I don't know the details of the last one, just to make sure that we're watching ourselves on both sides.
Are there any objections to tabling, Chris?
Just point of inquiry. Is this time sensitive? The yoga remix and the meditation session?
Josh?
The event, I believe, is April. The event is April 4th. So what would next week be?
It would be the week after we pass it, which isn't. Oh God. We still have to table it. There's nothing we can. There's nothing we can do.
I rescind my motion.
Okay, Corey?
I would actually like to send this bill back to committee. As long as we table this bill back to committee, and they're actually funded for food for weekly meetings. And I'm pretty sure our statutes say we can't fund for food at weekly meetings either. So I'd like to actually move to send this bill back to committee.
One second, you want to rescind for Michael?
I already said.
Michael?
It's not actually a weekly meeting. I know it says that. The point of the meeting is to clarify with them. I spoke with them. The idea is they do these meditation sessions. As we were treating the ASARC, I can't speak to how last ASARC did it. So I can only tell you what this year's ASARC is done and what this year's appropriations is done. But when multi-day events like that are requested, we fund them once, unless it's a general body meeting. This is not. This is a yoga meditation session. Again, it's the point of the club, but it is more than just a regular meeting. People that are not here in the could get something out of that.
Corey?
I move to table.
Are there any objections to tabling the bill? Alright, seeing no objections, the bill is tabled.
I was thinking it was contagious.
So, moving down to SBA 55-068, any motions to enter first reading? Ryan? Are there any objections? Seeing none, go ahead, Josh.
Alright, so as you see, we funded them $79.50. Again, this is also a resubmission I'm not sure they were even funded, so am I correct?
What is the reason?
We looked at it.
No, not a resubmission. It was originally submitted in the fall. It took them a very long time to get the Constitution approved. This is not a resubmission. No more contentiousness. This is just regular.
So we wanted for them to watch an educational film, which they don't need movie rights for, and pretty much food, drinks, and seat, and that was it. And materials, such as utensils.
Corey?
So I hate to butcher all the questions tonight. So I guess Mr. Malinga about this organization, did they mention anything about the movie night being able to have a different date only because it is 5 business days from today, and business office requires 5 business days in order for you to order something, so even if it was signed tomorrow by Mr. Coco, that would be 4 business days until they're
Okay, Michael?
Thank you for the question, Corey. So, first of all, our only statutory requirement is that we can't fund things that have already passed. That's the practice we have in appropriations audits. In addition to that, the practice we've adopted this year is 8 business days past the committee meeting, which this is exactly 8 business days past committee meeting. It was 9. It was 8 because it was on a Saturday after the event falls. I remember talking about it in committee. So this falls within all requirements. As for whether or not they can move it, it's a movie night. To me, it seems pretty simple to move, but I didn't actually meet with this organization. Chris isn't here. Chris is the one that met with them because, again, it was back in like September or October when they originally submitted it. So yes, to answer your question, I believe it can be moved, but it doesn't matter because it's 7-3 everybody else.
Cool. Corey?
There's no more questions. I'm going to go into voting.
Are there any objections to moving into voting into SB 855-068? Seeing none, we are entering voting for this budget. Click 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for abstentions. Gustavo, you click in. We are missing 1 click. Okay. That should be it. With the vote of 22-0 to 1, Club Day Espanol is allocated. So next on the agenda, we have resolutions for first reading. So the resolutions are, what we're going to do is we're going to read all 3 and have the lower sounds at the end. So do we have a volunteer for reading SBR 55-007? Aladdin?
I'll just start.
Just same as roll call. Alright, go ahead, Aladdin.
SBR 55-007, in memory of Wesley Andrew Florida Student Government Assembly, whereas this assembly, with unfeigned sorrow, has heard of the passing of Wesley Andrew Owens. Whereas in his passing we grieve the loss of a great person who exemplified the characteristics of moral values and high spirits in all aspects of his life. Whereas we honor an individual who, as a student of the health sciences at the University of South Florida, was able to positively affect many lives in the university community. Whereas his love for sports, snowboarding, weightlifting, and fishing in the Gulf of Mexico will be remembered by all those who were fortunate to share those times with him. Whereas, as a tribute of respect to the memory of Wesley, the Student Senate assembled will have a moment of silence on March 17, 2015. Whereas a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the family of Wesley and to the University of South Florida campus. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the University of South Florida Student Government Assembly that on behalf of the student body, this body offers our best wishes and sincerest condolences to the friends and family of Wesley Andrew Owens.
Thank you very much. Melissa?
Never mind.
Corey?
I move to pass by acclamation.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, this resolution is passed by acclamation. Next, we have SBR 55-008. Melissa, do you want to?
Can I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
A Senate resolution to honor the passing of our fellow bull, Joseph N. Frederick, Jr. Be it resolved by the Senate of the University of South Florida Student Government assembled, whereas this assembly, with unfeigned sorrow, has heard of the passing of Joseph N. Frederick, Jr. Whereas in his passing, we grieve the loss of a passionate person who embodied true bull pride. Whereas we honor an individual who, as a management major in the Yuma College of Business at the University of South Florida, was able to positively affect many lives in the university community. Whereas a tribute of respect to the memory of Joseph, the Students' Senate assembled will have a moment of silence on March 17, 2015. Whereas a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the family of Joseph and to the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the University of South Florida Student Government assembled that on behalf of the student body, this body offers our best wishes and sincerest condolences to the friends and family of Joseph N. Frederick, Jr.
Alec?
I move to pass this by acclamation.
Are there any objections? Seeing that it's passed by acclamation. Next, Alec?
Senate resolution to honor the passing of our fellow bull, Dennis Doe. Be resolved that by the Senate of the University of South Florida Student Government assembled. Whereas this assembly with unfeigned sorrow has heard the passing of Dennis Doe. Whereas in his passing we grieve the loss of a highly motivated and hardworking person who will be missed by all he has touched. Whereas he has exemplified the highest degree of moral values and high spirits in all aspects of his life. Whereas we honor an individual who, as a college of education student at the University of South Florida, was able to positively affect many lives in the university community. Whereas, as a tribute of respect to the memory of Dennis, the Student Senate assembled will have a moment of silence on March 17, 2015. Whereas a copy of this resolution shall be sent to the family of Dennis, to the Association of Filipino Students, and to the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the University of South Florida Student Government assembled that on behalf of the student body, this body offers our best wishes and sincerest condolences to the friends and family of Dennis Doe.
Milton?
I move to pass by acclamation.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the resolution is passed by acclamation. Brandon? there any objections to entering a moment of silence for these students that have passed away? Seeing none, we are now in a moment of silence. The next item on our agenda is SBS 55-029, the Availability, Notable Transparency, and Remuneration Act, also known as the ANTAR Act. So for this one, the committee passed the bill. Then Corey made amendments to the bill. So go ahead, Corey.
It's named the ANTAR Act because he failed to show up to the committee that day, so we named it after him. But on a real note, in the committee, I'm going to give a little brief background. In the committee, we were having a lot of discussion, debate, and a lot of tied votes on this changes to this act. So what I did is I went and made some changes that were a little bit less harsh of requirements. Not necessarily that I agree with them, but I'd be more okay with that than what we currently have. So after working with Mr. Malenga, I'm going to go through the first bill, how it was written. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the worries that Mr. Malenga and other members of the committee had with the bill, so we can address all the concerns. And then I will also go through, I will ask you guys to go to second reading, so that we can look at the amendments to it, so you guys can look at the two, see which one you guys like better, and which ones if any, which one you guys would be more likely to go with. So we'll go through.
Anyone have a motion then to first reading? Kristen? Are there any objections? Seeing none, go ahead, Corey.
Is this one all the changes?
This is the one that the committee voted on.
Okay. Because that should be crossed out here.
I know, this is the one.
That's the one you voted on.
Yeah.
Okay. So, employees should only clock in when they have what to do in their official student member capacity. It's pretty obvious, but it's just stated just for clarification, just to make sure there are no problems with that. Is this the one?
This is what the amendment to that.
Okay, whatever. So this is what it should actually look like when we voted in committee though. Back to student employees who need to work from outside the SG offices must follow procedures outlined in the student government policies and procedures handbook. That pretty much says, please refer to the handbook for if you're walking outside the office. The handbook will have procedures for that. We didn't really have any debate on that. They're okay with that. That's decided by mostly JuiceNext, but at the end of the day, it's decided by Gary. He's an HR representative. The next clause is, in order to be paid for work while working off-site, employees must follow procedures. This pretty much says that if you don't follow procedures, you cannot be paid for it. The reason behind this is if a person goes and Gary decides not to pay them for the hours because they get permission, it says it in our statutes, and therefore it's protected by his statute and the handbook. And they can't really argue against it because it's stated in things. So they look very similar, but the first one says they must follow the procedures, and the second one says you cannot be paid if you don't follow these procedures. The next one. This is where we're going to get into some of the debate in the committee. The two heads of each branch, student body president, student body vice president, senate president pro tempore, and chief justice and senior justice, and the ERC supervisor of elections must work at least 50% of their allotted hours each week. 50% of the hours worked each week must be worked in the SG offices during business hours, which is classified as 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The subclause below that, if at least 50% of the allotted hours worked each week is not completed, and/or the completed hours in SG offices or business hours is not completed, written justification must be sent to the chair of the Senate Committee of Judiciary and Ethics and the Attorney General within 3 business days of their respective timesheets. So, the explanations. The pro tempore president, Senate president, student body president, vice president each have a 39 allotted hours typically, unless you have a case where they can't work all the hours. So this pretty much says that they would have to work 20 hours of that. And then that also says, whatever hours they work, so let's say they only work the bare minimum 20, 10 of those must be in the office during business hours. The reason this was written was to make sure that they are fulfilling their hours and they're available to not only their students but also their staffs, and they're there for support. So the president, vice president would be available to all their department heads, their assistant heads, and all of that. The pro tempore and president will be available to all the chairs and senators, etc. The court would be available to associate justice and so on. The last clause says ERC will be exempt from this during voting. The sub-clause pretty much says that if there's a reason, you can submit it to the JEC chair and attorney general. This pretty much gives you a little leeway. If, let's say you have a vacation coming up, you're very sick, you can't complete those hours, there's a little leeway. So the idea behind this is providing a lot of transparency and accountability for our members of student government. We're here to serve the students, and we should be there for them and our staffs. So that was the reason this was written. I'm going to some of the complaints that we had. The first one is saying that they must work a certain amount of hours. The reason why this was a complaint was we were pretty much saying that they have to clock in. So the clause above says only clocking in work. Well, what if they don't have work to do? Why are we making clock in for these hours? That was a complaint saying that we're like kind of contradicting ourselves. It can go. So you can see it either way. I see it as in if you're president, you should be having work to do, even if it's working in departments. But not necessarily everyone has hours. So that's understandable. That was an argument to think about. The next thing was, well, if they can just write justification to the JEC chair and or attorney general, then how are we actually holding them accountable each week? Maybe they just say, I didn't work because I didn't want to. So how are we actually holding them accountable was another thing that we were talking about. And then another issue was working inside the office. Well, what if the president one week has lots of meetings and they're unable to be in the office at all? Or not working their 20 hours in the office? How is that going to affect it? So we had a lot of discussions on this. I prefer to show you guys the minutes before we have a little discussion so you guys can discuss it together. But that's some of the complaints that we had, that's some of the discussion we had. And I'd like to go into hopefully second reading so we have the minutes and see what you guys think comparatively. Unless you guys want to go on comments now.
This is his this is what you changed, right? This is different.
Yes, this is the second one.
Alright. Any discussion points, motions? Alec?
Move to enter into second reading.
Are there any objections to entering second reading? Seeing none, we are now in second reading. Corey, what we have?
Alright, so what really changed is this 207.8 came down. The clause will say the two heads of each branch, just list all of them, and the ERC supervisor elections must work at least 50% of their allotted. That's not the update.
This is the old one, this is the new one.
Yeah.
New one is right here.
And I'll read it and then we can compare. The two heads of each branch, list them out. The ERC supervisor elections must work at least 25% of the allotted hours each week in the SG offices during business hours. That pretty much says that if you're pro tempore, president, whatever, just 10 hours has to be in the office. It's low enough hours that even with a 20-hour load week, you should have 20 hours of free time outside of class, and you only have to work half of that in the office. This provides that they're not mandated how many hours they have to work, but it provides time in the office to respond to their employees, to respond to students, and have time in the office work. So it kind of takes away the requirement of having to be there half your hours. What if you have no work to do? What if you are sick? It kind of lowers that requirement. Then it goes on to see that ARC supervisor elections is exempt during voting week for obvious reasons. They have to be out at the polling stations. Rather, it says the two heads of each branch must have at least five office hours each week, and the hours should be posted on their door by noon at the beginning of each business week. The reason behind this, we talked about, well, what if it's in their calendar? What if they want to post it online? Why is it on the door? The reason it's on the door is getting it to IT to get on the calendar or on the website each week. We have to be submitting it to by Wednesday the week before, and so that was just a requirement that was really hard to do, too much work. So leaving a simple note, it gives you a limit to noon, the day of business week to start. So if they want to post it Friday before they leave Thursday, if they want to put somewhere that their office hours for the whole year are here, it just leaves a way open thing so that they know exactly when students can come visit them, make sure that they're readily available for their staff and their students. And so this was one of the things that Mr. Blind and I worked, and he was a lot more compromising with, I would say, to still hold them responsible for a lot of their duties, but not restrict them too much in all the hours that they have to do.
Questions, Ryan?
I do have a question. So I noticed you struck the JC and Attorney General part of this 207.8. How are we holding the heads of the branches accountable?
Corey?
The reason I did this is the requirements are low enough that at the end of the day, they don't have to follow. Like essentially, you shouldn't be doing this unless you're really sick. In which case, a reasonable JEC chair or attorney general is going to say there's outstanding circumstances that you shouldn't be held to this, and therefore it takes away saying you can just send in your excuse and you'll be excused from it. It's saying that it's here, make sure you do it, and if you're out of office or something, hopefully the Senate isn't going to impeach or take them out of office because they were sick 1 week or they're on vacation during winter break. We can set specific examples of why they're allowed to be. If you're allowed for sick or vacation, but then that can just be used or abused. This way, you're standing that we expect you here. If something happens 1 week, then it's kind of knowledgeable that things aren't going to be perfect. But it takes away a lot of leeway of saying pretty much you have to do them. They don't necessarily have to do anything about it, or you can just give any excuse. It just says that you have to do it. It's up to you guys if you want to put it back in. The thing is, one of the things we had in community was that that's kind of arbitrary what they say. I don't feel like coming to the office this week because I don't feel like coming in. Your excuse thing is fulfilled, but what's keeping you from being accountable?
Any other questions, concerns? No one has motion to add any of Corey's things, so the original bill is still what we're working with. Alex?
I had a question for you, Loa. Was it considered to maybe include in the amendments that justification must be provided upon request from the JEC chair in case there was a serious concern as to why they weren't fulfilling the 25% requirement?
That is definitely an option. I would recommend doing JEC chair and attorney general. If that's what you like to do, I am full agreement. At the time, I was trying to get a bill in time so you guys to see two comparative things. But I am complete agreement with that if that's what you want to do.
But also keep in mind the order of power in terms of like JEC. Their boss is the first and foreign president. You have to balance out with opposite branches. Reporting for it.
So what he's pretty much saying is that's what we put attorney general and JEC is you don't necessarily want the JEC chair asking the president, Senate president for their hours just in case it causes conflict, or the attorney general asking the student body president just because that's why we put both so they can help. Maybe the attorney general can go to JEC chair if they want instead of going after the president themselves, just so it's more balanced. But that's what Joe definitely would do that.
So can I move to amend by adding 207.8.3?
Alright, so this is Corey's original bill. And this is all of his amendments. You guys would need to motion to accept his amendments. If you like this one, and amend that. That'll be easiest. Unless you like the original bill. Alec?
So I move to accept Senator Elo's amendments.
Okay, are there any objections to accepting Corey's amendments to the Author Act? Seeing none. Now these are accepted now. What changes do you want to add in?
I move to amend by adding a 207.8.3.4,
Okay.
stating justification must be provided upon request.
You want like written justification?
Yeah. Written justification must be provided upon request from the Attorney General or JC chair or and JC chair for any infractions and slash or sorry.
Okay,
For any infractions.
okay. You guys think about that? Maybe slide it.
I'd just like to say that if we're trying to add something to mitigate so that the heads of branch are held accountable, then before the addition of AO 7.8.4, they would be held accountable because it would be directly breaking statutes, whereas with AO 7.8.4, it would be only, all they have to do is provide written justification. Again, this goes back to what the original thing was, just so that it's clear.
Okay, does anyone object adding that amendment? Seeing those amendments added, Corey?
Just to clarify on what Mr. Hilla said, technically this just says that you can give written justification, this means it has to be accepted. Before it said that you can give written justification to not do it, this pretty much says that they can ask for justification, which doesn't mean they're going to let you approve your decision, but it just says that they can ask for it. If you just say you didn't want to work, you can technically still say, I think you violated the statute. But if you say that I was really, really sick, and they can be like, okay, I don't know, essentially red shirt for this.
Right, Milton?
Can I just make a friendly amendment to work hours after infraction?
Right, read out what you want to say.
Written justification must be provided upon request from Attorney General and or JC Chair for any infractions of the work hours.
Else?
Up to 7.8.
Up to?
Up to 7.8.
Sorry, hold on. You said Corey? Wait, could you say what you're saying?
I understand.
Okay, Corey.
Just for clarification, you put this as a subclass of 207.8, so it actually refers to the clause. But that's up to you if you want to add anything.
We restrict every single comment at the time
Corey?
We have to Mr. Malenka. You want to say something?
The way this currently reads, it doesn't matter if there's justification or not. If somebody doesn't do 5 office hours, regardless of the reason, regardless of if we're not here for a week from spring break, they're going to get written up because it's violated statutes. It just says you can provide it. It doesn't say anything about it. You know what I'm trying to get at here?
I mean, it could be up to the SIP to decide what you want to do, and how you want to phrase this. That was one of the issues before, is that trying to figure out how can we hold them accountable, but also give them the leeway of like if they're sick on vacation or something, too busy, but figuring out what would be a good middle ground for it.
Brandon?
Could you make use technically of automatic email reply or a valid excuse if somebody is on vacation in that sense? You know how like sometimes when people are on vacation, you send them an email, you get an email right back stating I'll be out of office until this date due to me being on vacation. Is that validate for justification?
Corey, it could, but me leaving it unoccupied for an hour to get out of the office can just be just as much justification without giving a reason.
I'll add it.
Perhaps to address Melanga's concern, it's up to you have 207.4, reading that upon receiving written justification, Attorney General or JC Chair can hold the heads of branch not in violation of the statute.
See, what do you want to read?
Upon receiving written justification. Attorney General and or JDC Chair. Can decide not to hold the heads of branch in violation of the statute, or just not hold them in violation.
be something to that effect, because the ERC supervisor is not head of branch and
Friendly recommendation to add, can decide whether or not to hold convention parties evaluation. And to strike to not, or just the second not. All of these.
Right.
From the amendment, instead of can decide whether or not to, but may use their discretion in holding convention parties in violation.
Wait, hold on.
Much more clear.
Hold on a second, Corey.
I would recommend not putting discretion anywhere in our statutes, because that you're pretty much saying that they can use whatever discretion they want.
That's exactly what this is saying.
Well, that is fine, but we're not telling them they have the discretion. We're saying they can decide. It's word choice. It makes the number says that we're giving them discretion for however they want, but it's deciding.
Right.
It's a verbiage of it.
It's synonymous, but sure, what's in that?
Okay, Aladdin, I move to add at the end of 804.1 to whether or not to hold the mentioned parties in violation with a registration certificate. The parties will define what violation they would have to provide with justification.
Corey.
I yield to Mr. Monahan.
Michael.
You don't want that, Corey. You don't want to yield to me. I think this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. What is this accomplishing? And the subclause, first of all, Miller's right. It already says discretion, so it doesn't matter what you say it or not. It's the same word choice. And so right now what you're saying is that if Mr. Hibble likes me as vice president, he can choose to not hold me accountable to the rule. And if he doesn't like me, he doesn't have to. That's insane. That's ridiculous for any rule, let alone this one, which is an arbitrary rule to begin with. So, Miller, you're right. You already know I disagree with you. You shouldn't yield.
All right, Corey. I guess I have a thought for the junior bodies as whole. What would you guys think about leaving the discretion up to Escado, an independent party who can decide? I understand it's different, but then you're not taking into likes, dislikes, or anything. You're taking vacation, sickness, stuff like that. That can be an option, which we could ask Mr. Manka about this and come back next week. But we would leave the discretion up to a neutral party who has no interest in it at all. But that's up to you all to decide. If that's
Josh.
Yeah, that's what brought this bill up in the first place, like why you decided that.
So this is to provide a lot of transparency and accountability for our officers. There have been certain years where heads of branches do not spend hours in their office, and there are complaints from their respective branch members that they are unable to get into contact with their heads to answer emails, to get questions answered. I've had business office looking for certain heads of branches and unable to find them when they have to get paperwork filled out or get questions about that, and they're unable to find them for a couple of days. So this will just for accountability for our officers, for our students, for our staff, student staff, and for our professional staff. And currently, as it stands, like the exact code has a rule that each of their employees must work 50% of their allotted hours in the business office every week. That is in the exact code right now. This is
not in the business office. I mean the office.
In the office or business hours. Sorry. So right now, technically, let's say President Coco and Rondell. Right now, President Coco is supposed to work 20 hours a week in the office during business hours. Mr. White is supposed to work 10 hours a week in the office during business hours. Mr. Berkowitz, I think, is 30 hours or so, and he's supposed to be working 15 in the office during business hours. So it's that the judicial has 60% right now. The only one not mandated is the Senate, and you can do it. But this just leaves accountability across the board. The reason why it's only heads of branches not really an accountability system for them. They're essentially their heads of a branch. No one can tell them what to do. And so at first it was looking at employees, and it was decided that the heads of branch have the power to oversee their employees. And essentially, if they want to tell them 50% of their hours each week, it's up to them. But here's my accountability for those that there's not really anyone holding them accountable for what they do and what they should be doing. So that was a little history of why we have this. In order to not throw certain parties under the bus, it is to prevent happening in the past from happening in the future. I'm sorry that people like Mr. Langer, who may want to work really hard and has intentions not to break this, they get stuck with it. But at the end of the day, it holds accountable for our representatives that may want to break it.
My question for you, Corey, is from Director Manko. What's his take on
this? Mr. Menga does not go any way for a bill. He gives guidance, and he says if this is something that we want to do, he is okay with us holding our employees liable. The reason why this is in our statutes is because he said it's something that is a student government thing and we should handle. And the reason why the off-site is in the handbook is because after writing clause like that, he recommended that we put that in the handbook instead. And he said this is completely the jurisdiction of our system.
Josh?
I feel like this bill right now is highly arbitrary, and I think we're trying to piecemeal it here in the Senate. I think it should be sent back to committee to further discuss and make it more objective. It's very subjective right now.
Corey?
The reason why this is on the floor right now is because committee was already half and half, straight down the middle, of trying to clear it up, and so they recommended having it on the floor so we can get more minds on it, more ideas on it going through, to make sure that we were, instead of going back and forth, it can be like, literally we were tying everything, and Chair was breaking the tie. Sorry, Heather, but he was literally breaking the tie on every single one of them, and it was just because it's a highly controversial bill. It's one that is very tedious because it has to have the right wording to make sure that we're not getting people in trouble for what they shouldn't be. And that's why it's on the floor, so that we can get more ideas as a general body of 25 members is what is best for the future of Senate as opposed to a little committee going back and forth fighting against it.
Ryan?
I yield to Mr. Malinga.
Michael?
So Corey's right. In committee, we kept going back and forth on this, and the reason the reason the Rules Committee kept going back and forth on it, I think, is because Mr. Ulloa is trying to mandate people doing a good job, which can't be done. It's not possible. There's a job to be done. So the example you gave is that if the business office needs to get in contact with, say, student body president to either sign a bill or, let's say, to freeze an account, they need to be able to do so, right? You have statutes in place to make sure he's doing his job, make sure he signs it within a certain amount of business days. But mandating the amount of hours he's going to work or the amount of business hours, and then saying he's going to contact the JC chair, he's going to do this, he's going to bounce back and forth, that doesn't make any sense. That's trying to mandate doing a good job versus trying to mandate the job, right? So if there's something specific you want the student body president, the Senate president, pro tem, vice president to do, mandate that in statutes. That's the purpose. But the idea here is not to try and mandate people doing a good job. It can't be done. That's why it was such a struggle in Rules Committee, and I think that's why it's such a struggle here. It's really not something that should or can be done. Yes, me. You elect people, and you have to trust that they're going to do a good job, or you're going to elect the right people.
Corey, the main reason why this was written was because I had exec members that can't make a full decision without the consent of the president and vice president, and so they were trying to make a decision to get things done on time, and they were unable because the president and vice president would not be in for days at a time. So therefore, we're halting the progress of student government as a whole because they can't find them for a couple of days. So it's not necessarily just a business office. And he said there's policies for signing bills and stuff, but we don't have policies for them helping their branch. So whether Aziz wants to be in the office or not, if Aziz was not in the office for all 40 hours of his week, some of those chairs would be really stuck on things. He's in the office all the time, but at the end of the day, if he's not there, it's really hard for the chairs to get things done if we can't get guidance and stuff from our heads of branch that have some of the control, have some of the knowledge. So by doing this, it's providing time in the office, it's requiring them to be in the office a certain amount of time with office hours that they're available to students and their staff, and I think that's the main reason for it. It's a mix. You can't really hold them accountable. I agree with Ms. Malia. You can't make them do a good job, but you can make them be available to the students, at least to hear the concerns and make them feel like they're represented. Whether or not they follow through with that is a different story, but making them at least feel heard, I think is a big thing.
Are there any new discussion points, decisions on this bill? Aladdin?
I move to enter voting procedure.
Corey?
I object, and the reason I object is I think it's a highly controversial bill, one, but two, this requires 2 readings. I know we're on the second reading, but the only reason we should be on the second reading is because we had to read the amendments. So I at least recommend it going and being tabled, so we can have a real second reading before actually voting on it.
Okay, you rescind your objection, Mr. Aladdin? Okay, someone totally new does not raise their hand today. Kelly?
I move to table this bill.
Are there any objections to table it? Seeing none, this bill is tabled. Alright, thank you, Corey. Just in case the file deletes itself, so. Alright. Next is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements to make? Next week, Senate at 5:30. I'll be doing a little workshop with Attorney General. If you want to learn how to write a resolution, write bills, do track changes, if you're sticking around next year, just want to learn kind of like the ins and outs of the thought process of like making a bill or resolution. That's next week, 5:30 in here. Kristen?
I just want to say good job to both of the new chairs and Chair Chairman Locke and Tim. Both of them have been working really hard this past week and been putting in a lot more hours than I expected that they would. So you guys have been working really, really hard.
Ryan?
Yeah, so I like your idea on the resolution and bill writing. I'll be sure to actually go at a different time than 5:30. But happy St. Patty's Day, everyone.
Alright guys, Dominique?
As you guys know, this week is Bulls for Kids on Saturday, so this week is the countdown to the marathon. If you're on a team, tomorrow is Call Your Liaison in the Face. I'm apparently a liaison, so you can find me a face. And, or just contribute if you want to find me a face as I'm a senator. You can do that. And then there's a give back night on Thursday, and then it's just showing you how you dress for the marathon on Friday. So just support the cause.
Okay, Brandon?
Is there anyone who did not get to sign up for tomorrow's birthday? It's available. 9:30 to. We would love the manpower. As I said, there's going to be 3 cool positive points. Yeah, cool SG swag. So if you are available still, please come out even if you don't sign up, and I'll make sure to reflect it on your name.
Alright, one last thing. For the Senator Retention Success Committee, we have Mr. Ryan Miller, who will be chairing the committee. And I have some people that were suggested. So Melissa Dinser, do you want to be on the committee? The Senator Retention one?
Yes.
I have Alex Wade. Would you like to be on it?
Yes.
And the other people have already accepted. We have also Jessica Vanek, also wants to be on it, and Anita Hassan. If anyone else want to be on that committee, pretty much evaluates Senator retention, success, and incentive programs, and what we can do better. So if anyone else just email me after, and I'll send out the memo with the people on it, and the chair, Ryan, will send out the Google, all that stuff. Alright, so any motions for this thing? Liz?
I motion to
Alright, any objections to that? Alright, seeing none, we are moving into final roll call. So click 1 for yes. for president. Is everyone clicked in? Corey, have you clicked in? Melissa, clicked in?
Yes.
Okay. Now we have a final roll call of 24. Next for adjournment. Alright, Leslie? Are there any objections to adjourning? Seeing none, we're adjourned at 7:51 p.m.
I mean, we've gone back, we're in a circle, we're in a circle.
This is how it's done. 1 to 5 hours alone. What? 5 to 5 hours a week.
Why did I think office hours even work? I mean, look, I think office hours as a general concept are very good. But you can't change it. But then what can you do is office hours. You don't know how to We are meeting for more representatives. If you told them, you know that nobody's gonna come. Of course, that's fine. But man, and that's why that was a good thing. Mandates are bad.
Well, and the thing is that because for these corners, it's like, okay, if you say Friday, I will be here on Monday from 9 to 5. You're done. And that's why I left the room.
This is